I still remember that night. It was my first time backpacking solo, and I'd checked into this old, cheap hostel tucked away in a cobblestone alley, the kind of place with more history than hot water. My room was tiny, just a rickety bed and a small barred window looking out onto a brick wall. The ceiling was the most interesting feature, a mess of plaster cracks that looked like a faded, ancient map. I was exhausted from a full day of exploring, so I fell asleep almost instantly. I woke up suddenly in the dead of night. The room was pitch black, colder than before. A strange sound filled the silence, a slow, rhythmic, pulsing thump-thump. It sounded like a giant heartbeat. My own heart started to hammer against my ribs. I fumbled for my phone, the sudden light blinding me for a second. I pointed the beam upwards, and what I saw made my blood run cold. The ceiling was lower. I was sure of it. It couldn't have been more than a foot from my face now. The cracks, those faded map lines, were darker, thicker, pulsing in time with that horrible sound. They looked less like cracks and more like veins, dark, bulging veins, throbbing with a life of their own. As I watched, paralyzed, they began to spread, branching out across the plaster like a grotesque, living web. I tried to scream, but my throat was tight. Only a choked gasp escaped. The air grew heavy, thick with a musty, earthy smell, like damp soil and something else, something metallic. The rhythmic pulsing grew louder, closer. The entire ceiling seemed to be breathing, inhaling and exhaling in slow, deep waves. With every exhale, a fine dust of plaster rained down on my face, tasting like chalk and decay. Then, a whisper. It wasn't through my ears, but inside my head, a dry, raspy voice that felt ancient and ravenous. "I'm hungry," my mind screamed. "Get out, get out, get out." But my body was frozen, pinned to the mattress by sheer terror. I couldn't move, couldn't even close my eyes. I was forced to watch as the center of the ceiling began to sag, dipping down towards me like a monstrous belly. The plaster stretched thin, becoming translucent. I could see something dark shifting behind it, a formless mass moving with a sickening, fluid grace. The veins throbbed violently now, a deep, angry purple. The whisper came again, louder this time, filled with a desperate, gnawing need. So hungry. The smell was overpowering. It was the smell of the grave. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying for it all to be a nightmare. I recited every prayer, every nursery rhyme, anything to drown out that awful, incessant heartbeat. The pressure in the room was immense, like being at the bottom of the ocean. I felt the bed frame groan under the unseen weight. The plaster creaked and groaned, threatening to give way at any moment. I don't know how long I lay there, trapped in that waking nightmare. It could have been minutes or hours. My mind started to fracture, the line between reality and hallucination blurring completely. I remember thinking about the other travelers in the rooms next to mine. Could they hear this? Were they experiencing it too? Or was this horror reserved just for me? Was I chosen? The thought was somehow worse than the thing itself. The whisper echoed again and again, a mantra of starvation. Hungry, hungry, hungry. Each repetition felt like a physical blow, chipping away at my sanity. I felt a strange sense of resignation wash over me. Maybe this was it. Maybe this is how it ends. Swallowed by a room. It was so absurd, so impossible, that a hysterical giggle threatened to bubble up from my chest. And then, as suddenly as it began, the pressure lessened. The rhythmic thumping started to fade, growing more distant. The horrifying whisper receded, leaving behind only the echo of my own frantic heartbeats. I dared to open my eyes. The ceiling was still low, but it seemed to be retreating. Slowly, inch by inch, it was rising back to its original position. The grotesque veins faded, shrinking back into faint, harmless cracks in the plaster. I lay there, not daring to move a muscle, until the first slivers of grey morning light filtered through the small, barred window. The room looked normal again. Just a cheap, dingy hostel room. The ceiling was high above me, covered in a simple map of cracks. It was just plaster, lifeless, ordinary plaster. Had I imagined it all? A stress-induced nightmare, a vivid hallucination brought on by exhaustion. I almost convinced myself that was it. I sat up, my body aching as if I'd run a marathon. My eyes fell upon the bed. The white sheet where my legs had been was empty, but it wasn't pristine. There, in the middle of the mattress, was a dark, rust-colored stain. It was large, roughly circular, and it hadn't been there before. It looked disturbingly like something had been fed. I didn't wait to check out. I grabbed my backpack and ran. I didn't look back at the hostel, at the room, at the ceiling. I've never told this story to anyone before. People would say I was crazy, that I dreamed it, but I know what I saw, I know what I heard, and every time I sleep in a new place, I can't help but look up at the ceiling and wonder, is it hungry tonight? Thank you for listening. If you've ever had an experience you can't explain, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories from the dark. Stay safe out there.